You? You want to fight me? The young black belt chuckled, looking at the elderly woman with disbelief. Everyone in the gym turned their heads. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday morning at East Point Martial Arts Gym, a place where sweat hit the mats harder than the punches, and the sound of gloves striking pads echoed like a heartbeat through the building. Regulars were stretching, shadowboxing, and warming up for their daily drills. But then the front door creaked open, and something different walked in. Not a bulky fighter, not a new recruit. An elderly black woman, maybe late 60s, early 70s, quietly stepped inside. She wasn't hunched over. She wasn't timid. Her posture was perfect, back straight, chin slightly lifted. She wore a plain navy blue tracksuit, the kind you might see on someone out for a morning walk. Her white sneakers were clearly worn from use. Her silver gray hair was tied neatly into a low bun. She looked around the gym, calm and observant. A peaceful smile rested on her face, the kind your grandmother gives you when she knows something you don't. People paused mid-stretch, mid-rep, mid-conversation. A few exchanged glances. One trainer raised an eyebrow. She didn't look like a visitor, and she definitely didn't look like a fighter. But then she said it. "I'm here to spar," she said softly, but clearly. "I'd like to go a few rounds." You could hear a pin drop. A few chuckles scattered across the room. Someone near the back whispered, "Is this for a TikTok video or something?" "She must be confused," another said, "or lost." But the woman didn't react. She didn't get flustered or defensive. She simply walked toward the center of the mat and removed her jacket, revealing a black rash guard and old martial arts pants underneath. She meant business. "Who do you want to spar with?" the coach asked, unsure whether to be concerned or amused. She pointed at Marcus, one of the gym's pride fighters. A black belt in both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, Marcus was known for being fast, strong, and smart in the ring. He had the kind of talent that made people stop what they were doing just to watch him train. Marcus looked up from tying his gloves, smirked, then laughed. "Me? You want to spar me?" She nodded. His teammates chuckled. A few pulled out their phones. He looked over to the coach, eyebrows raised, silently asking, "Are we really doing this?" The coach hesitated. This would be dangerous. But something about the woman's presence felt stable, confident, like she wasn't someone who wandered into the wrong place. Against his better judgment, but curious beyond belief, he gave a slow nod. Marcus shrugged, bouncing on his heels. "All right then, Grandma," he said, putting on his mouth guard. "Let's see what you got." The two met in the center of the mat. Gloves touched. A respectful tap. The bell rang. Marcus came out easy, barely moving at full speed. He tossed a few light jabs, clearly trying not to embarrass her, or maybe just trying to finish the round without hurting anyone. That's when everything changed. With a blur of motion, the woman pivoted, dropped low, and launched a spinning heel kick so fast, so precise, that it sliced the air just inches from Marcus's head. He froze. His eyes widened. The room went dead silent. No more chuckles. No more phones recording for fun. Now everyone was watching, really watching, as the woman reset her stance with laser focus, calm breathing, and eyes sharp as a blade. Marcus blinked, now visibly shaken. The smirk disappeared. He raised his guard. This was no grandma. This was someone who had done this before. And in that moment, the gym realized they hadn't just witnessed a surprise. They had awakened a legend. The bell rang. Marcus bounced lightly on his feet, shoulders relaxed, a faint grin on his face. His gloves hovered lazily near his chin as he circled the old woman. This was clearly a warm-up for him, just a fun little joke to entertain the gym. He flicked out a couple of light jabs, barely meant to connect. It was more of a dance than a fight. People around the room chuckled. Even the coach cracked a smile. Phones were up, recording what everyone assumed would be a short, harmless exchange. Then, wham! In a blink, the old woman ducked low, her knees bending like springs. With a single pivot of her foot and a graceful rotation of her hips, she unleashed a spinning heel kick. Sharp, fast, and controlled. The edge of her heel stopped inches from Marcus's temple, hovering there like a warning shot. He didn't even flinch, not because he was brave, but because he never saw it coming. The laughter vanished. The gym fell completely silent. Mouths hung open. The coach leaned forward in disbelief. What has happened? Marcus took 2 slow steps back, his smile completely gone now. He blinked several times like he was trying to reboot his brain. That kick was real, and she wasn't playing. But she didn't stop there. Without hesitation, the woman slid back into her stance, low, balanced, and precise. She began to move, not awkwardly or cautiously, but with a fluid rhythm, like water flowing across the mat. She advanced with careful, exact steps, circling Marcus. Every movement had purpose. Her hands weren't twitching nervously. They were steady, controlled, trained. Then came her next sequence, a lightning-fast jab to test his guard, a faint sweep of the leg to throw off his balance, and a sharp palm strike aimed at his chest. Marcus deflected the jab, jumped the sweep, and just barely avoided the strike. The energy in the gym shifted. This was no joke anymore. Marcus shook his head and reset. You could almost hear his thoughts. Okay, time to get serious. He stepped in with a quick combo, jab, cross, hook, thrown with real speed this time. The woman didn't flinch. She blocked the jab, pivoted to avoid the cross, and then, like it was nothing, she snatched the incoming hook midair, grabbing Marcus's glove just inches before it could land. The entire gym gasped. She held it for a second, just long enough for Marcus to know he was wide open. Then she let go, stepping back respectfully. Marcus took 2 deep breaths. For the first time, he looked unsure, not scared but rattled, like someone who had stepped into a fight expecting to teach a lesson and suddenly realized he was the student. From the back of the room, someone whispered the words everyone was thinking. Who is this woman? She didn't answer, of course. She didn't need to. The woman returned to her stance, calm and steady, as if she'd done this 1,000 times. Her breathing was slow and even. She wasn't panting or shaking. She wasn't overwhelmed by adrenaline like so many young fighters get. She was in complete control. Around the gym, everyone watched in stunned silence. No one was filming anymore. Phones were slowly lowered. This was no longer content for likes or laughs. This was something else entirely. Even Marcus knew it. He adjusted his gloves, gave her a respectful nod, and whispered, "All right, let's go for real." And as they squared off again, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a sparring match anymore. This was a lesson in disguise. After several intense minutes, blow after dodged blow, block after counter, neither side had managed to land a clean hit. The gym had never witnessed such a controlled, elegant display of martial arts. The tension was thick, and yet, the movement between Marcus and the old woman felt like a choreographed dance. Sharp, clean, deadly if either chose to unleash their full force. Then the coach stepped in. "Stop," he called out, stepping forward with both hands raised, his voice echoing through the silent gym. His eyes were wide. "That's enough." Marcus immediately took a step back, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Sweat clung to his skin. His confident smirk was long gone. He nodded respectfully, visibly exhausted, and not just from physical exertion. He was mentally shaken. The old woman, calm and composed, stood upright and gave a slow, respectful bow. Then she turned to the stunned crowd and said with a warm, almost teasing smile, "Don't let the gray hair fool you." People finally exhaled. A few chuckled nervously, but everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who was she? The coach walked over, still processing what he'd seen. "Ma'am, what's your name?" She gave a nod. "Thelma. Thelma Brown." At first, it didn't register. The name didn't ring any bells for the younger crowd. But one of the older instructors, Mr. Jenkins, a quiet man who mostly handled the kids' classes, suddenly stood up from the back. "Wait a second. Thelma Brown?" he blurted, eyes wide with recognition. "Thelma Stormfoot Brown? For the U.S. national team?" Heads turned. Thelma chuckled lightly, almost embarrassed by the attention. "I haven't heard that nickname in years," she said. The truth unfolded like a movie script. Miss Thelma Brown was no ordinary senior citizen. She was a 9th-degree black belt in Taekwondo, a former national martial arts champion who dominated the competitive scene in the 1970s and early 80s. Back in her prime, she had been one of the fiercest female fighters in the country, competing internationally and winning titles long before social media ever existed. She had trained with martial arts legends, men and women who were household names in the world of combat sports. She had taught seminars in self-defense for women, especially in underserved neighborhoods, helping protect and empower those who often felt vulnerable. But after a long and decorated career, Thelma had quietly stepped away from the spotlight. She retired from competition. She stopped teaching. She never chased YouTube fame, sponsorships, or interviews. She simply disappeared from the martial arts world. And that's why no one in the modern gym knew her name. Not until now. I just wanted to see if I still had it, she said with a soft smile, brushing back a strand of silver hair. She didn't say it arrogantly. There was no ego behind her words. Just honesty. After years away from a mat, she had walked in, not to prove something to anyone else, but to prove something to herself. The gym stood still. It wasn't just admiration they felt. It was respect, pure and deep. Marcus, still catching his breath, walked over and held out his glove. That was humbling, he said. Thank you for that lesson. Thelma shook his hand and smiled. You've got good instincts. You'll go far. And just like that, she picked up her jacket, tucked her gloves under her arm, and headed for the exit. No dramatic exit. No boastful speech. Just quiet dignity. As the door closed behind her, one of the younger students whispered, I can't believe we just sparred with a legend. The coach nodded, still stunned. Next time, he said softly, maybe we don't judge someone by the number on their birth certificate or the color of their hair. The room was speechless. No one moved. No one even whispered. They had just witnessed something that felt unreal, like a scene from an old martial arts movie, except this was real life. Marcus, still catching his breath and processing everything that had just happened, walked slowly toward Miss Thelma Brown. This was the same fighter who had once chuckled at her, thinking the match was a joke. Now that smile was gone. In its place was something far more meaningful, respect. He stood in front of her and gave a deep, traditional bow, lowering his head until it nearly touched the mat. I'm sorry I underestimated you, he said, his voice full of humility. You're a warrior. Miss Thelma looked at him kindly, her posture still straight, her eyes calm. She nodded. You'll be a good one too, she said gently. Just stay humble. It wasn't just advice. It was a quiet truth from someone who had seen more than most. A woman who had already walked the path he was just beginning. Unknown to everyone at the time, the entire match had been recorded on the gym's security cameras. It was meant for safety, not for storytelling. But when the owner reviewed the footage later that day, he sat back in awe. He called it one of the most beautiful displays of martial arts I've ever seen. He clipped a portion of the sparring session, just under 2 minutes, and uploaded it to the gym's Instagram and TikTok accounts with a simple caption. Don't let the gray hair fool you. It took less than 24 hours for the video to go completely viral. Millions watched the short clip. It was stitched, shared, and reacted to by martial artists, influencers, and everyday people around the globe. Some were shocked. Some were inspired. All were moved. The comments section exploded with admiration. She moved like water. Absolute legend. Real martial arts isn't about age or size. It's about spirit. This gave me goosebumps. I wish I could train with her just once. Even professional fighters reposted the video, praising Thelma's movement, balance, and awareness. A few martial arts legends even recognized her name, confirming that she was once a dominant force in the sport. But while the internet buzzed with applause, something even more powerful happened in that gym. The people who had been there, who had seen it live, began to change. Marcus, once known for his pride and showmanship, became more focused in his training. He started showing younger students how to bow properly. He asked the older instructors more questions. His kick stayed sharp, but his ego softened. The gym's culture shifted. Respect deepened. Smiles still came, but they were now mixed with a little more thought, a little more appreciation for experience. Thelma never returned to the gym after that day. She hadn't come to teach, or to prove anything, or to go viral. She had come for herself, for the love of the mat, for the feeling of movement, for a personal question only she could answer. Do I still have it? And she got her answer. When a local journalist reached out for an interview, she declined politely. "I'm just glad people enjoyed it," she said. "But I'm not looking for attention. That part of my life is long past." But even as she disappeared back into her quiet life, her legacy grew louder. Because for those who were in that room, what happened wasn't just a sparring match. It was a lesson in humility, in respect, and grace. A reminder that greatness doesn't always come in loud footsteps or flashy uniforms. Sometimes it walks in softly, with gray hair, calloused hands, and a knowing smile that says, "I've already been where you're trying to go." And just like that, Miss Thelma left behind something far greater than a viral video. She left behind a lesson the world will never forget. After that unforgettable day, no one expected to see Miss Thelma Brown again. But just a week later, the door to East Point Martial Arts Gym swung open, and there she was. Same calm smile, same worn sneakers, same quiet energy. This time, though, she didn't ask to spar. She walked in with a gym bag over her shoulder and simply said to the coach, "If the offer's still open, I'd like to help teach." The room lit up. News spread instantly. Miss Thelma wasn't just a moment. They realized she was about to become a movement. From then on, she started coming in regularly. Not to fight, not to show off, but to share. Her presence changed everything. Young fighters, those who used to brag about their win streaks or followers, now lined up eagerly for her instruction. They sat cross-legged on the mats, listening like children hearing bedtime stories, as she spoke about her time in international tournaments, her experiences training with grandmasters, and the honor of teaching women in rough neighborhoods to protect themselves. But it wasn't just the stories that stuck with people. It was the way she taught. Her classes weren't filled with yelling or flashy drills. She didn't care how high you could kick or how fast your punches flew. Instead, she focused on what mattered most: discipline, breath control, balance, humility, respect. "Anyone can learn a punch," she would say, "but not everyone learns when not to." She'd pause class just to point out something subtle, like how a student bowed too quickly or how someone's breathing got too aggressive when sparring. To her, martial arts wasn't just a set of movements. It was a way of being. Marcus, the once proud black belt who had sparred with her, became her most loyal student. He trained under her like an apprentice, soaking up every lesson. He followed her stretches, mirrored her rhythm, even picked up her habit of tying his belt slowly and with intention. And the transformation was clear to everyone. Marcus no longer walked like he owned the room. He walked like he belonged to something greater. One evening, while the gym was winding down, a new student walked in, young, athletic, and clearly full of confidence. He looked around the room, sizing up everyone, then noticed an elderly woman sitting on a mat in the corner, doing quiet hip stretches. He laughed to himself and muttered, "Is this like a family fitness place or something?" Before anyone could reply, a longtime student leaned in and whispered, "Don't challenge her. She's the one who silenced the whole gym." The new kid blinked. "Her." The student just nodded. "Watch her for 5 minutes. You'll understand." And he did. He watched her teach Marcus a pivot step that made him look like he was gliding. He watched her correct a spinning kick with just 2 fingers and a calm word. He watched as the toughest fighters in the gym listened to her like she was made of gold. That night, the new student stayed late, and he signed up for Miss Thelma's 6 a.m. class the next day. Soon, her classes were full. Not because she advertised, not because she chased likes or posted motivational quotes, but because everyone wanted what she had: clarity, presence, and mastery without ego. And as time passed, her legend only grew. No trophies were added to shelves. No medals hung around her neck. But hearts were changed, spirits were sharpened, and humility was restored. So whenever someone new walked into the gym and asked about the kind older woman with silver hair and quiet eyes, the answer was always the same. "That's Miss Thelma. Don't be fooled by the smile. She's the one who silenced the whole gym."